Welcome back to the Sales Problem Podcast, and welcome to Season 3, Episode number 4. This is called the Best Work Yet, or Get It Organized. I was going to say get your stuff set and ready, but this is the episode. Are you overwhelmed with work, always busy, never getting anything accomplished, need better conversations to be more productive? Well, this is the interview for you. I'm your host, Steve Comerford, and joining me is my co-host, the man who's always organized and on top of his game, at least in the hair category, Daniel Burns. You're looking good today for those listeners that are listening and not watching. How's the how are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's new in your life?
Steve, the hair is in place, but I got to tell you, this is the episode for me because I am not an organized individual. So I can't wait to get some advice on how to be more organized. But one thing that is organized in my life is my coffee. Today
Okay.
I'm still on the 5th gear. And I've been drinking so much, Steve, I think I might be at like the 10th gear. I think I may have to downshift today in the conversation.
You could switch over to cranky pants. That could slow you down, although it doesn't slow me down.
I've got lots of energy for today's episode, Steve. And yes, I'm going to go on another rant because I had this idea. I told you I'm not holding back in season 3. So I don't know how it's going to come out, if it's going to make any sense at all. See if I can connect the dots. I don't know. But I want to tell you and our listeners that I started watching my favorite show again last night. It's on Crave. It's True Detective. And it's in season 4. And normally it's Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, but this season has Jodie Foster, who I love. So I'm so into this right now, Steve. And they are solving this crazy murder.
Do you want me to get you the spoiler? Do you want me to tell you the
end?
Don't
tell me.
Oh,
don't tell me. Don't tell me. But here's the link, right? They're solving this crazy murder. We're here on the podcast. We're solving the sales problem. And one of the things that Jodie Foster keeps saying in this series is we haven't asked the right questions yet.
I love that piece, yes.
Right? What are the right questions to solve the problem? And they're trying to solve the murder and we're trying to solve the sales problem. But her point is, if you can't solve the murder, if you can't solve the problem, you need to ask a different question or you need to ask it in a different way. So today we've got Susan on the podcast. We're going to ask her a bunch of questions. We're going to find out some new answers. Will we solve the sales problem today? I don't know. Maybe it will just be a cold case forever, Steve. I hope so, because maybe there'll be more episodes if we don't solve it. But we're picking up clues from all of our guests, and I love it. So, Steve, I think maybe that we are like success detectives, right? Success leaves clues. We're picking up clues. We're like success true detectives. That's my rant. I don't know what you think. If there was any connection, if that made any sense at all, but let's go, Steve. I told you I got too much crank in my system.
Are we Starsky and Hutch or Crockett and Tubbs? I don't know. If anybody wants to go back that far. Yeah.
Definitely not as good looking as Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. So, no. But let's go.
But yes, hey, that's funny you bring that up because I did binge that show. When I was away, I had to find how to download it and watch it because I wanted to watch the final episode. It actually is an excellent one of the better seasons of True Detective for sure. And I like your point. It was funny that came to my mind too. Is like, no, you have to write. No, that's not the right question. What's the question? I thought that was a good little piece to it. Anyway, on that note of coffee, though, Dan, for our listeners out there, there is a little bonus for you if you want to go online and order some crank coffee from the Neal brothers. Feel free. There's a 15% discount there for you. Just have to put in the sales problem 15. I ordered some coffee the other day. It's en route. I'm looking forward to it arriving on my doorstep. So take advantage of it. And that's there for you guys. So let's get going, Dan.
Yes.
I am excited to have Susan Gregory on the show today. I ran into Susan a few years back. Fantastic facilitator, did a course with her a number of years ago. So really looking forward to chatting with her today because she does a lot of good stuff. But she is the driving force behind Best Work Yet and brings almost 2 decades of experience in facilitation, coaching, and training. As the founder of Best Work Yet, Susan works with sales professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders to elevate their productivity and effectiveness. Kind of talks to our audience, doesn't it? I think so. So, specializing in productivity enhancement, team collaboration, and behavior change, Susan blends cutting edge strategies with practical insights to drive tangible results. A recent CEO client told Susan she helped them play nice together, which helped them achieve their ambitious acquisition and revenue targets. Nice. Pretty good. Susan, so happy to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm super stoked to be here. As I said before the show, I was listening to some of your previous episodes, and I just love the fun dynamic between the two of you and your guests. And I got to say, on the point of being organized, for those people who are listening and not watching this, Dan is wearing a beautiful powder blue blazer, and he's got his little handkerchief in the pocket, so very spiffy. Steve, I can't say, are you also wearing a blazer? Oh my gosh, are
Got
you
a
two
blazer,
matching?
brown.
This is adorable. So
Yes.
already I
Thank
can
you for
see
noticing.
very, very organized presentation of your show. And I also love what Dan was just saying about asking questions, because as a facilitator and a coach, the way that I love to work with people is asking the right questions to help draw from them what their concerns are and help them to find their own solutions to their problems. So I feel like I'm in the right place here with you guys.
Well, that's awesome. So we're going to start our little conversation together, Susan, with a little elevator pitch. So we
Yeah.
go 4 floors.
Yep.
We give you a topic on each floor,
Mhm.
and it's not a question, but a topic, and you have
Yep.
to give us your 1-minute elevator pitch. Best
Sure.
advice, most important things you want to get across to our listeners. So are you ready?
I sure am. Let's do it.
All right. We'll press floor number 1. And the topic is there is so much stuff out there.
Yeah, there is so much stuff out there, and I think for your audience, there is so much stuff out there that you can do, right? So many new tools to look at, so many different techniques, different activities you can be doing with your business. And for me, the key is focus, right? So really narrowing down to what are the top activities that you are best suited to do, what are the 20% of activities or the 20% of accounts that get you to 80% of your results? Because it's so easy, especially with all this new technology, to get distracted by those shiny objects. But when we stop and think about it, you can usually identify where the real value comes from, like digging deeper into your existing accounts or following up with prospects that have asked for proposals from you. And so, speaking of which, like, especially when you've got all of these like different tabs open on your computer, you've got all of this different technology at your fingertips. Multitasking is the worst. It is the worst. Steve, well, we've talked about this before in the course that you were on. But like,
Yeah.
if you're writing a proposal and you've got all these other apps open, you need to shut those down and at least give yourself 15 or 20 minutes of not switching to anything else, because most people can't actually multitask. You're actually just switching between tasks. And that cost of switching, it's going to mean the task actually takes you twice as long because of all the focus that you lose, that switching cost. So just work on one thing at a time until it's done. So floor 1, focus.
All right, Bing. On to floor number 2, sportswear, hardware, and I am the only one that can do it.
So you know what? As we were starting off, one of you mentioned something about getting stuff done, and I was like, "Oh, that was a question I didn't ask before we started off," which is, "Do we swear on this podcast?" I'm not going to. Don't worry. But I'm the only one that can do it. BS, right? We've absolutely got to find ways to delegate. If you are a business owner or you're a leader, you've got the authority to do this. So think about, okay, maybe I don't need to hire someone new, but I can get a vendor to do some admin work. And if you are an employee and you don't have the ability to delegate, you've at least got to find ways to hire people to help you around your house to free up some energy. In your business, I'd say let's find ways to make opportunities for others. So, upskill other people by delegating, starting a co op or internship program, and start off with those tasks that are repetitive and lower cost to outsource so you can free up your time for that higher value work. You absolutely are not the only one who can do it.
Okay, we're on floor number 3. It's menswear. I didn't get an opinion from you on who looks better, but we'll go there later. Floor number 3, the topic is important versus urgent, and I can never figure this one out. So help me
Yeah.
here.
Oh, you know what? I feel like, especially for your audience, there's so much that is both urgent and important, right? So it's like those key activities around, around driving sales. I need to stay in touch with my customers. I need to get that proposal out the door. And I need to get back to my customers in a timely manner. All of that stuff is important and urgent. But what's difficult within this is that we need to make time for those things that are important but not urgent. And where I would urge your listeners to focus is, what are those things that help me to build capacity, right? And I love the metaphor here of the domino effect, where you imagine a row of dominoes, but where you start off with a really small domino, knocking down a domino that's almost twice as big. And so that actually can work. So a small domino can knock down the next one that's almost twice as big. And the way to think about this is, what is that thing that I can do this week that's actually going to build me more capacity for next week? So things like, again, delegation, process, automation. And I'll give you an example from my business. A lot of people are really impressed with how consistent I am at posting on LinkedIn. I post twice a week. And they're like, this is amazing, Susan. We know you're out there facilitating, coaching, doing all of that great work. How are you so consistent? And the reason I'm so consistent is that I took the time to delegate. So I have an assistant. She's wonderful. She listens into a lot of my work. So she knows what I'm saying. She knows how to say it in my voice. So I've delegated. We created a process around it where she'll draft the posts. We'll do a whole batch of them. I'll review them. And then automation. So we use a tool called Buffer to post on LinkedIn. And so we've built this capacity through delegation, process, and automation by taking the time to work on it upfront, which sets us up for success later.
Dan, I don't know. We had focused delegation and increasing capacity. I think we just got to drop the mic here. But we got one more floor.
Okay.
Floor number 4. And a word that gets overused, I think, a little bit is culture.
Mm-hmm.
But the topic is like a thriving culture.
Yeah.
So take me there.
Yeah. So I was just pausing for a moment to think of what you were saying about it gets overused, culture, right? And I think of culture as just the way things are done around here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like how do we work together? What are our team dynamics like? And when I think of a thriving culture, it's one where people are excited to show up to work. Right? People are attracted to their professions. It's like, you love being in sales, you love being a business owner. But then if we have a culture where there is friction, where there are some people who are just like toxic or horrible to others, that can really get in the way of us showing up and doing our best work. And you need to manage your people problems so you can get the best out of people. I think sometimes we don't recognize that someone who is toxic but a high performer is actually costing you way more than you realize, right? Because if they're causing other folks to be disengaged, or if you're losing top talent because they just can't stand working with this person, there's no other way to deal with it. We need to manage that. So funny, I'm saying, like, you are asking about a thriving culture. I'd say making sure that we are getting rid of people who might drag you down. And then there are other ways that we can look at, hey, how do we really connect, get to know each other as people, and build that kind of culture where we can do our best work and have fun.
I don't know if we have enough time to, we could dive in on everything Susan just laid out for the listeners, and we'd be here for, well, we'd have a full-time course, right? A couple of days later, we might have kind of hit the tip of the iceberg on some of this stuff. I love that last piece, Susan. And
Yeah.
it's so, and maybe we'll dabble on this conversation later, but it's so difficult, right? There's so many personalities in your sales organization or just within your business, and
Yeah.
how to hmm, who steps up and makes that culture active and positive, and who's kind of draining it. But anyway,
Yeah.
hmm, that's a deeper conversation.
Maybe you have to have me back.
Maybe, yeah, part two.
Absolutely. Well, I'm off the elevator, Steve. I'm at the cash, and I'm buying what you're selling, Susan.
Nice.
100%. Like one of the things I really loved, and I want to come back to it for our listeners, is that idea of the dominoes and getting leverage. And one of the things that I love to look at is what are those high payoff activities? And I read a stat the other day that was talking about how salespeople only actually work out of an 8-hour day. They're selling 2 of the 8 hours, and the rest of the time is doing things that seem like it's important or it has to get done, but it's not contributing at all to where they want to go and the end result. So I think what you said there is so key to find those activities that move the needle for people. And what are they for our listeners? If you're listening right now, what is it that really gets you the results, and how much time do you focus on that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, so what are those big picture things that we know really help it to drive us forward?
So I want to ask you, Susan, because our listeners are in the car right now. They're headed to that next sales call,
Yeah.
and you've got expertise that other guests haven't come on our show and have. What is your favorite nugget from your experience working with people that you want our listeners to really walk away with or use through the day today?
Yeah. So the big one for me is build your relationships before you need them. And your audience knows we know how important it is to take care of our customers, right? But also there are other relationships like our support people, our vendors, and our colleagues. And sometimes we have to have, and all of these people help us to win on a daily basis. But sometimes we have those hard conversations that we need to have with them. And if we haven't invested in the relationship before we have those hard conversations, it makes it so much more difficult to work our way through them. So my big picture thing is business is personal. People sometimes say, like leave the personal stuff at home, but I disagree. Like it is tied, our work is tied to our identity. We spend more time with our colleagues than we do with our loved ones. So we need to show appreciation, recognize effort, give support and opportunities, and show people that we care. And that just makes everything around the business so much easier and just so much more satisfying as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I love that part about business is personal, because people just say business is business, but that's a transactional way of approaching it. And when you're developing long-term relationships with clients, it does tend to get personal. And I think you nailed it, that if you're not putting those deposits in with those customers, when it comes time to do a withdrawal, you're going to end up in overdraft because you haven't put into them enough. And it could be your customers or it could be your internal relationship. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So there are so many tools out there to try to keep people organized, and softwares and apps and all kinds of things. What actually works, Susan? What's the easiest way to kind of keep yourself organized, get yourself organized? Is it a software, or is it something like the old-fashioned to-do list, or what's the best way to be productive, organized, all of that?
So my thinking about this is don't overcomplicate your systems, and you've got to also do what works for you. Like I'm for sure going to share with you some of my favorite things I see for my clients as well, but we have to realize like we're all different. Like for me, I need to see what I'm working on. I like things to be visually organized and colorful. So it's like, so sorry, Steve. I've got to say I like what Dan has on better because he's got the blue with the contrast. And so, so that's just more like it's just more like I can see the different colors, right? Sorry, Steve. Oh no, we're not
That's
going to
okay.
We're having you on again, Susan, for sure.
Big
Absolutely.
shoulders.
So what I love for me to keep organized, I use Mural. So for those people who don't know what Mural is, it's like an online whiteboard with visual sticky notes. And so I can move it around easily. I can see in the big picture what I'm working on. And that really helps me. I love technology, but I think it's really easy to have too many things going on. And what you want to do is to make sure that what you're working on, you can see it all in one place. So there are other cool tools like ClickUp or, as you're saying, like old school to-do lists, whatever. But whatever you pick, make sure that you have your kind of central dashboard so you don't have to be looking in a whole bunch of different places to know what you need to be working on today.
I think that's where I get messed up sometimes. I want the newest app or the thing, and then this thing is in a different place, and I've got something else over here, and I get too many things going on, and that's where it ends up kind of breaking down. And I love that idea of get everything in one place if you can.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've talked enough, Dan. So I'm gonna take over now. So, Susan, you do a lot of work with teams, right?
Yep.
And when we've met, it's specific to sales teams. But I wanted to talk about like high performing teams and really what gets them on track and really running on all cylinders. And you talk about the 5 behaviors.
Yep.
Can you tell our audience a little bit more about that and the 5 behaviors?
Sure. So I use Patrick Lencioni's 5 behaviors model. And the 5 behaviors, if you imagine it as a pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid is trust. So that's what's fundamental. Then we've got conflict on the next level. Moving up the pyramid, we have commitment, then accountability. And then at the top of your pyramid is results. So trust is fundamental. You know what? I find that a lot of salespeople who are really good just seem to get along with everybody. And when you get to know people as people, right? Like what do you like? What do your weekends look like? Do you have kids? All this kind of stuff. And when we know people within our business that way, we can be more kind and flexible, and it makes things easier, right? So sometimes I'm thinking one time I was working with a guy and he was just yawning like crazy in one of my sessions. And I was like, this is so rude. He's acting like he's so bored in my session. I was kind of offended. And then during a break, I said to him, like, how's the course going for you? And he's like, hey, I'm really enjoying the content, but I have a 3.5-month-old baby at home. So I slept like garbage last night. And it's just, that kind of thing is so important in our businesses to know people that way. So you can be more flexible with the way that you show up and not take things personally.
I did want to bring up one. I like that piece around building relationships.
Yeah.
And I still remember the one guy that really helped me out. His name was Bud Murby. Dan. He was a service technician. I was back in the days of me selling photocopiers, and Bud was the technician in my territory, and I really locked in with him, got to know him well. Went out for coffees, did that part. Like before, I was, selling money, having great sales. But to your point, Susan, I that worked for me because later I needed him because then he started bringing me business and we worked well together. Customers were very happy. But I'm glad you brought that up because it's too often you feel as a salesperson, you're the person that's responsible for, getting the results, and they forget about the people that support them and help them, from the order entry to the accounts receivable to the service or, software support, whatever the support team that you have, it's really so critical. But if you were to look at some of those behaviors, right? You talked about trust, conflict, commitment, accountability. Is there one that's underrated or underappreciated?
Yeah, the one for me that really stands out is conflict. What I see in a lot of businesses is people trying to brush past disagreements. Like we're running so fast, we're trying to get stuff done, and when someone says, "Hey, I'm concerned about something," or "I see a challenge or a risk here," people are like, "Oh, don't be negative." Like, "Oh, like no, 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 it'll be fine. Like let's get on with it." But if you tell people to be positive and deflect their genuine concerns, they're going to leave the conversation feeling unheard and unappreciated, and it'll probably cause you problems down the line. Because a lot of the things that people are saying, like, "Hey, I'm worried about this. This technology is untested," or "I think we need to invest more in understanding how this works first and not rush into something." Then often what will happen is that concern actually comes to bear, and we would have saved a lot of time and money if we had taken the time to hear from everybody. And even if we still decided to go forward, if you have invested that time in listening, then this other person, when they feel heard, are more likely to get on board because they know that you get them and that it's been taken into account. So yeah, the one for me that's underrated is conflict. It feels uncomfortable. I personally love harmony, and I want everyone to like me. I want everyone to get along. But if we push too hard for that and we ignore the uncomfortable conversations, it's going to come back to bite us later.
So as a leader or a business
Mm.
owner, is that something you should search for? Like you should really try to get as much of that, I don't know, opposing ideas or opposing thoughts or challenges to what you're trying to do and kind of
Yeah.
harness that? Is that
Yeah,
good
yeah. I
advice?
want to give you,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to give you a couple of examples of where I think this is important. Um, One area is when you need people to buy into what you're doing. Say for example, you're introducing a new CRM into a small business, right? And the salespeople are going to need to use it. So actually getting them to be part of the process where you're looking at the different options, having that voice represented, listening to their concerns, listening to their challenges. So yeah, as a business owner, I would say look for those different viewpoints, consider who your stakeholders are in your business so you can hear them out and get them on board as part of your process before you make a final decision. So that's a great opportunity to really harness productive conflict. And the other one is not putting off tough conversations, right? We all know there are some things that are bothering us in our business. Maybe people are doing something that is annoying or the performance isn't up to standard, and we need to let people know sooner rather than later, because I have had this tendency in the past. I'm really working on it. Something's bothering me, and I try to tell myself, "Oh, it's fine. They didn't mean it that way. They have a good intentions. They probably won't do it again." All these things trying to manage it inside. But of course it happens again, and it's worse next time, and the impact is bigger. So identifying those places where, you know what, you can kind of nip it in the bud. Or if you didn't nip it in the bud and the poor performance continues, at least you've already started to let them know, "Hey, that's not okay. I need you to do something different. And if it doesn't change, there's going to be consequences."
I think I learned that the hard way early in my management career. I was like, no, this is the way we're going. I don't listen to anybody. You are either on the bus or you're not. It was like
Yep.
I was never open to any of that, challenging conversation or listening effectively to really make any positive change. I think am I a little better, Dan? I don't know. I continue to learn.
I think you're getting better every day, Steve.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey, Susan, I want to come to something that you said that I think is so important for our listeners, and I just want to kind of double click on it and go a little bit deeper because you talked about being unheard. And I think that that is the gem that I've heard so far in our podcast, especially for salespeople who sometimes tend to be the talkers and the ones that really want to keep talking and not necessarily listening to their clients and everything they're saying. And part of it, I think, is because we're trained to overcome objections. And I see that a lot. Somebody says, well, here's how I feel. And then instantly, instead of acknowledging or listening or understanding, we're just quick to say, hey, don't worry about that. Here's what you need to do. And then back into advice mode. So I love that you highlighted the importance of listening and making people feel heard.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Dan. I mean, there's always that great phrase, no one ever listened themselves out of a sale, right? And sometimes we feel like when you're hearing this objection, we feel like, oh, we need to answer it. But actually, sometimes just really giving them the opportunity to feel heard is actually all that's needed, right? And they almost start to overcome their own objection when you ask about it, like, what else? What's important? What's important
Mm.
about that? You were saying before, Dan, about asking the right questions. Just let them speak. What else? What's important to you? How would that impact your business?
Hmm. I love it. So I'm going to flip over to the other side and think about the people who are kind of the naysayers or people who think maybe a little bit different to this. And they're saying, I don't like conflict. I'm the type of person who that's not me, Susan.
Yeah,
How would, if somebody is like that,
yeah.
how would you suggest they approach a challenging conversation when they think of themselves as like, hey, I am not going there. That's not me. And especially with some of the big personalities you might find in a business or a sales organization, and they're the, the real ego. It's tough to challenge somebody like that and have a courageous conversation.
For sure, for sure. So, a couple of things. I want to hark back to building your relationships before you need them. So, if your relationship is good, it's so much easier to approach those tough conversations. The next thing is I would have you think like, what's it costing you to not have this conversation, right? That behavior, that thing is going to continue, and if it does, and it gets worse as it often will, what is that going to cost you? So really think about helping to get in touch with the benefits of doing this. And then what I would counsel is when we approach the conversation, keep it brief. Sometimes we get so worked up about our explanation or why we think we're right or why their behavior is bad and try to give way too much context. But you know what? Just get in there and say, hey, I noticed this. I noticed you did this thing. Here's the effect, and could I ask you to do it differently next time? Keep it brief. They might get defensive. They might not react well. And that's a point to go, okay, thank you for listening. We can come back. We can come back to this later, but don't keep going. Don't insist, because often people will naturally just feel defensive or a bit upset if you share with them a tough conversation. But once they've had the time to think about what you've said, you will often see a change in behavior, and that's what we're looking for. That the best apology is changed behavior, and we will often get there if we give something clear, with details about the change that we're asking for.
I think that's my takeaway. That's success leaves clues. That's a great one for me, is keep it brief.
Yeah.
Because I think that's sometimes where I get myself into trouble, is trying to have that conversation, but then going too far into detail and not asking it, just spit it out, get to the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what I find is that when we say this thing and say, "Hey, you did this thing, could you do it differently next time?" And they'll say, "Oh, but I had to do it this way." And they go blah 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 blah, and then you start to go, "No, you didn't have to do it this way." Blah 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 blah, and it gets almost into an argument. It's like, "No, just say it. Thank you. Okay, then just let's see how it sinks in later."
I love it. How about the other side of things as well when it comes to saying no to clients? I think there is a tendency that the customer's always right and we should be making sure that they're happy. And if we do anything that, is saying no, to them, they're not going to be happy and we're going to lose the business and the relationship's going to be ruined. But talk to me about people who are people pleasers versus we're trying to develop challenger salespeople. So tell me about that dynamic. And is there a way to say no to a customer? Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Take it away.
Yeah. So what the challenger part, right, is we want to help the customers to understand their business in perhaps ways that they've never understood it before, right? So being that detective, digging into what they're asking and identifying options. Because I think what can happen is client asks for something, we start to say yes before we even know what the capacity is on the service delivery people in our organization to actually fulfill on it. So instead, what we want to think about is let's understand why it's important. Let's understand how they would use what they're asking for, right? And then there might be other ways that we can meet that need. So, for example, one technology consulting company I was working with, the clients would be asking for like a special kind of report, like, can you report on this and this? And when they started to ask about it and get into detail, they realized, hey, the clients actually got all that information, and we just need to show them how to look it up. And the other part is sometimes there are situations where they're asking us to do something and we can't do exactly that. So it's so key just to manage expectations and say, here's what I can do for you, right? Flip it around to the positive. And people get annoyed with us when what we provide is below what they expected. So if we can be honest right out of the gate and say, this is how I can help, and without overcommitting, that's going to set you up for the best possible success with your client.
Susan, you're making me think about the times where I should have said no. I had very good intentions saying yes of I think we can get there, and we couldn't get there, and
Yeah.
then the client ended up disappointed, and it actually a no would have been better than the result of having a poor experience, which is what I created by saying yes to something I should have said no to.
I think we've all been there.
Now, Susan, something else that you've done in the past too, or you do, right,
Yep.
is helping project teams and that mind mapping process. I thought it
Mhm.
was pretty cool and interesting and lots of colors. I remember that. But can you tell us, share a little bit about that and how that works and is effective in terms of communication and also effectively uh, executing on projects?
Yeah, sure. So mind mapping is a visual tool. It's something that helps you to think, to plan, and remember. So like imagine a page with in the center of the page you've got an image or a word that represents your topic. So whether it's your project or your client, and then we've got like colorful branches coming out from the center using keywords, color, and pictures to organize our ideas, like in a brainstorming map. So I love mind mapping for those times when you want to step back and think about the big picture. So you could be using it as a project team to draw on everyone's ideas about how we're going to do this thing. Or you could use it for account planning, where your client is the subject of the mind map and you're thinking about all the different aspects of your client, like their goals, their people, what you know about their buying process, all of this great stuff. And it gives you that time to step back, reflect, think about the big picture and how you can be creative with what you're working on. And this is one opportunity where I love to go old school and break out paper and colored pens and take some time away from screens and engage different parts of the brain. So I love that for the big picture planning, reflection, and this can be wonderful for communication as well, as you mentioned, Steve. Like get your team together in a room, get everyone engaged and involved, and it can be a really efficient way of capturing a lot of ideas as well. Oh, by the way, I have a pre-recorded webinar showing how I use it for planning, and so for your listeners who want to get that link, I'll talk in a moment about how you can get that from me.
Thanks for that little tidbit. I'm an old school guy too. Uh, challenged with having to use technology and and throw everything up on a computer screen. I love flip charts. I love Post-it notes. I love markers. I guess it is. I think it's a lost. Yeah, there you go. As she shares the Post-it notes. And I imagine you probably have multicolored Post-it notes at your fingertips, don't you?
Oh yeah, sure do.
Yes. Is it a lost? Are you finding it a lost art? Because it's so much comes out of those conversations where you have to step back, you have to write it down, you share it amongst your group. What are your thoughts on that one?
Oh yeah. When I run in-person sessions and I have the opportunity to do something more creative with a group, people come in and they see these colored markers on the table and they say like, "Oh, it feels like I'm back in kindergarten." But they're saying it like it's a good thing, right? Because
Yeah.
we often don't have the opportunity to tap into different modalities. We're staring at screens all the time, but like there's so much that just flies by and doesn't stick with us. But when we have the opportunity to touch something, to create something visual with our own hands, with pens on paper, it creates such a lasting impression. And yeah, so I do think it is a lost art, and I think it is an opportunity for us to do something different with our teams.
And lastly, but we've asked you a number of questions. Back to True Detective. Did we ask you the right questions? And did we miss anything? Like, would you like to share anything else with our listeners?
So there is one thing that I wanted to dive into a little deeper, and that is how not to give feedback. So when we're talking about these tough conversations, and I'm telling you, hey, get in there, be brief, and so on. There's one technique that kind of drives me nuts, and it's the sandwich method of
Okay.
feedback, right? You say something, oh, thanks for doing this, uh, thank you for doing that thing that was so great. Next time, could you do this thing differently? And then, by the way, I love the font that you used. And we just kind of, we're kind of burying the bad news by putting it in the middle. And we're hoping to keep the relationship good by putting something good on either side of it. But the thing is that it's BS, right? And people who are used to this method realize we're buttering them up, and then they're just waiting for, okay, what is it that she really wants to say? So I would say keep your relationship good by showing appreciation and support generally, like every day. And then when you need to have the tough conversation, you can just go right and go, hey, Steve, you need to wear a different blazer next time. I need contrast.
No
I'm not gonna
sandwich,
I'm not gonna get
no
invited back.
sandwich needed there. Oh, Susan, we're definitely having you back on again.
I will learn from this. I will show up differently next time. It's a good thing it's a podcast.
Exactly.
So I just want to say, Susan, that I also have Post-it notes colored. And if you look to the right of me, I've got multicolored Post-it notes on a big, huge calendar. There's like 4 whiteboards. So kind of like you, Steve, I like that, old school, get out the whiteboard and just start dumping everything that you're thinking on there and that creative process. So I'm glad that you brought that to our listeners today. Where can everybody find you, Susan?
Yeah, so find me at bestworkyet.com/contact. And you've got a bunch of different ways to get in touch with me there. And if you want to get the mind mapping webinar, you can just drop me an email through the website.
Perfect. And we will put all of that in the show notes. So it's super easy to find Susan. And I think she confirmed, Steve, that we are success detectives. And she dropped a whole ton of clues for our listeners. We are that much closer to solving the big crime of the sales problem.
Well, maybe you do look a little like Woody Harrelson. I wasn't going to give you the Matthew McConaughey credit,
Of course
but
not.
maybe Woody. But back to his Cheers days, maybe that could be no.
No.
Anyway, I do want to go back on one piece too, Susan. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you again. There's so much value in this episode. I think there's definitely one or two or three or four things that I think our listeners can really leverage and use tomorrow or today after their sales call. I think the other piece too, I love the piece around the challenging conversations or having or opening yourself up for those conversations. One thing that I've learned from my two sons is that sometimes you and my wife's taught me this one too, is you can't solve the problem. You can't put a bow on the box, right? You can't have this conversation, try to get to a fix and put a bow on it and then put it away. Sometimes you have to leave it, let it sit, let it come back later.
Yeah.
That's one thing and you mentioned, I think about the best compliment is hearing something later on.
Yeah, the best apology is change behavior.
Yeah. So sometimes I think as leaders, you want to fix everything right off the bat, right? Have that conversation and go, oh, glad we had that. And then let's get back on track. And sometimes you have to let things sit and come back for another day. So
Yeah.
So I love the conversation. Thank you very much. And I hope that our listeners have taken a lot of good ideas around building success, better conversations, at least getting your stuff together to be a little bit more productive. I know that I feel a lot more confident knowing listening to Susan, having worked with her in the past. Again, reach out to her, check out her website, go to the webinars, and I think you'll definitely get some value there. So Susan, you've helped us today solve the sales problem, as Dan said, sales detectives. You gave our listeners some new knowledge and a need to thrive and succeed. You've helped them grow by enhancing what they know. Listeners, we love you. We appreciate you. Please share this with a friend. Tag them. If you know that people can benefit from this, I think that's where Dan and I really value the conversation. So wait for the next episode. I've lost it here, Dan. Keep building the best version of you. Kaboom. Drop the mic. That's it. See you next time.
I can do some editing at the end of that.
Excellent job. I knew you would. I lost track. I was disorganized.
That was super fun.
Did you enjoy it? Thanks, Susan.
I had a great time.
Yeah. I had a great time too. I had a blast. That was fun.
Awesome.
Hey, nice little segue with the True Detective, Dan. That was good.
Something that popped into my head.
I did not see that coming, but very appropriate.
I keep trying to surprise you, Steve. I got to keep you interested, right? That's why you keep coming back, doing more podcasts with me.
keep me interested. Yeah, you can pay me.
I guess I could hit stop here too.
That would keep